guys, welcome back again to another series of these videos. Now let's start talking about what string really is in Python programming language. Now firstly, I told you guys in the last previous video, like printing something on the console, a string, like you can just print a string of learning Python. I'm learning Python rather. So the shortcut to run this code, to run your code, is Shift F10. So now I press Shift F10. So my code is now running now. Do you see that? I'm learning Python. So now let's start talking about all the topics on strings that we'll be covering in this chapter. So we'll be covering Python string, slicing string, modify strings, concatenate string, format string, escape characters, and string methods. So now examples of Python string is this. You can even add some text to it, like I'm learning Python from JSON technology. Yeah, do you see that? I'm learning Python from JSON technology. So running this code on our console, then you should see I'm learning Python from JSON technology. So that is examples of string. That's examples of string. Now also we would like to, I have to add a topic here. Not on this topic is not under string in Python. It's a separate topic entirely. So this topic is called variable. This topic is called variable in Python. So variable in Python. So variable in Python is another means of storing data into a particular text file. Or don't let us use text files. It's just a allocated allocated storage for storing a text for storing a program for later future reference purpose. Like just take variable as an example of something that we can relate to, where we can save our code for usable purpose later on. So now let's example. Now let's do one thing about things that we need to talk about. Variable is anytime you want to create a variable, you just create a variable with any name, like something similar to this, like this. Let's say I create a name and I call it John. So now this, what I just did here is variable. I created a variable. So what is this code? What do we actually call this format of code? This one is, we are storing John string inside a name called variable. So now variable is just a format where we can store our data for later reusable purpose. I told you Python has a lot of series of programs that we can actually work with. So now John now is in name variable. So to print what exact John what John really is we are going to say print, then print the variable called name. So this time around we are going to do that. Even Python also suggests something like v simplified variable. So name is a variable. So instead of us putting this thing inside a string, so we have to store it inside. So anytime you are calling a variable, you don't need to put a string. You just have to call the variable directly. All you just have to do is call the variable directly. Now let's run it. Now do you see that John? Do you see that John? Now John is written on the screen instead of this name. So we have successfully stored John into name variable. So now that is exactly what we want. That's exactly what variable is. We will cover more about variable in the next chapter, but currently now that is how variable really works with. So actually, if let's say I want to create a variable of first underscore name, so one thing, when you are creating a variable, you don't start a variable with creating with numbers like this. Like maybe you don't start a variable by creating number like this, and you don't start a variable like if you are joining two words together, you should not do it like this first name. So this is totally not unaccepted. Use that is underlined red. So this is cannot assign to operator. Do you see that? So you can't create a variable like this. If you are joining two words together, is that you use underscores like this, or you use a camel case like first name like this, something similar to this. If you don't want to use underscore, so you can use a camel case. So common case like starting this first name, like common case like any format like this. You can either create your variable anyhow you like it, but note one thing, and also there are some certain parameter that you shouldn't do when creating a variable. Like you should not use some keywords in Pythons. We have a lot of keywords in Python, so we discuss about keywords in Python in later on. So note one thing, that variable is very case sensitive. Now let's say name. Now let's say name equals to maybe John. So let's say name equals to John, and then let's say name equals to, let's say this name equals to Elizabeth. So now do you see that when you said print, let's print the two variables. Now this one is name, the first name that we have on our variable, so and then the second name. So I told you that Python is very case sensitive. That is so this name here is totally different from the name here. This one starts with N and then this one starts with normal N. So Python is very case sensitive. So this is a different program entirely in Python programming language. So now do you see that John is printed that and Elizabeth is printed second, because the variable is totally different. So note when you are creating a variable, Python is totally different now. So now let's say okay, occasionally we have name like this. Now maybe occasionally we have name. Let's clear this one out. Occasionally we have name. So if I run this code, what will be printed on the screen is the second one name, second name here, because Elizabeth. This one will be printed out entirely because the first variable is John, but we make changes now. What we just do here is, if you are using the same name for the two variables, what you are telling Python is, Python, please, I want to change the data inside this name to this new database, new data that I'm adding to it. So that is why you are saying Python is telling you that you have what, Elizabeth printed out on the screen. So Python is very case sensitive to the core, that you should know what you should really types, or how you create a variable. Be very case sensitive with it. So now Python string. Now let's say John is a boy. So this is part of examples of another Python string. So okay, but you see that if you don't print anything on the console, nothing is going to be printed out. Note that. So every time you want to print something on the console, make sure you use print like this. So now I'm printing the variable out now. So now do you see that John is a boy? So John is a boy is printed out. So I stored John, I stored John data inside this variable called name. So and I'm now printing the variable out like this. And there's another thing that I want to talk about, multi-line string, because something we call it multi-line string. This is under Python string too. So multi-line string. So you can call this multi-line string. And now what do I mean by multi-line string? Multi-line string is just like something like a statement. Let's say a statement. Let's create a statement. So now this statement, now I told you can use 3 quotes like this in a multi-line statement, or you can use let's back it, let's redo what we deleted. So or you can just use double quotes like this. Just make sure it's three quotes up and down when you are creating a multi-line statement. The Python doesn't dispute of what you are putting there now. So you can just say John is now learning Python programming language. So John is now learning Python programming language now. So now let's print the statement out. So print statement. So print statement. Now let's run this code, then you should see that. Do you see what we have on the console here? Now this is what we have on the console. John is now learning Python programming language. So this is what we call multi-line string in Python. So this is exactly what we really mean by multi-line string in Python. So in the next tutorials, so we'll be discussing more about what we called slicing strings, modified string, and the rest of the strings that we have in Python. So guys, stay tuned. In the next tutorials we'll be discussing more about it. So meet you in the next tutorial. Bye.